Hello and welcome to Newsform. I'm your host, Chris with the CHRILLCAST, and today we're going to be discussing something that I've definitely been thinking about for a long time. So let's kind of go through a backstory and a history of why I think this makes sense and where we're at. So here we go. Make sure you guys like this video, comment your thoughts down below, and subscribe as always. So here we go. Nintendo has a history of creating pretty cool classic consoles. Starting with the NES Classic Edition, which was only $60, only came with one controller, which was probably a mistake, and a really short cable, but that was their first shot at it. It had 30 games, did pretty well actually, sold out both times they released it, which was pretty cool to see because people really like these classic games. Don't want to have to break out, a 1980s console that has probably some bad caps in it, maybe some issues, doesn't look great on a flat screen unless you really know what you're doing. But this was a pretty cool thing. It was an intro to, NES classics, especially for people that never played them, but also nostalgia for people who did. And the controller felt exactly the same as the old controllers from back in the day. It was able to play the games in pixel perfect mode or CRT filter or even 4:3, which is exactly what most people probably chose. You had Donkey Kong, Balloon Fight, Legend of Zelda, Super Mario Bros., the Metroid series, the original one. So it had a lot of great games, even Super Mario Bros. 2. Anything that you might have wanted was probably on here, and anything that you wanted that wasn't, well, it was easy enough to add games that Nintendo later on realized, whoops, system's easily hacked and modified. But I didn't do that. I don't actually own this console. I have played one. They're pretty awesome. And for $60, 30 games, that's a pretty good deal, especially with the controller included that was compatible with the Wii and the Wii U. And they went on and made the SNES Classic Edition, which was $20 more, but it came with two controllers. My goodness. And those controllers had much longer cables. They were just like the original SNES controllers. A lot of people love the SNES controller. Came with, I believe it was 21 games. Yeah, 21 games. Because you get Star Fox 2. Which is never actually released on the Super Nintendo. They finished it, put it on the Super Nintendo Classic, and sold it for $80 with two Super NES controllers. And this was a very high quality product. A lot of people really liked this one. And for the 21 games that you get, it was pretty awesome what they chose to put on here. You got Super Mario World, Super Mario Kart, Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, F-Zero, Super Metroid, just Punch Out, just good stuff all around. Even Final Fantasy 3 is on here. Super Mario RPG is on here, Earthbound, Secret of Mana, like Donkey Kong Country, like everything that this thing is firing on all cylinders from a Super Nintendo standpoint. It's pretty awesome. So Nintendo really hit it out of the park with this one. And then, everybody's like waiting, when's the N64 one coming? Well, I think the reason we never got the N64 Classic was because of the N64 coming to the Switch, which, let's be honest, the N64 Classic probably would have been at least $150, probably $125 bare minimum, but they would have had to release it, probably give you 4 controllers. So I'm thinking that probably would have been $150, and the amount of space and storage it would have taken up probably was looking pretty hard to sell for Nintendo at that time. So Nintendo decided, let's just put it on the Switch, charge people more money for Switch Online, and they did not release the N64 Classic. But at the time, the people thought they were going to be releasing the N64 Classic. They also thought that they would be releasing Game Boy, and they did not do that. Instead, what we have is 2 pretty good Game & Watch consoles, which I have this Zelda one. It's actually really high quality for what it is. It has 3 Game Boy 3 NES and Game Boy games on there. It's the original Legend of Zelda. It's Legend of Zelda Adventure of Link, and then Link's Awakening, along with a Game & Watch Classic game, which I think is, Pound Pests with Clobber Moles in the Game & Watch Classic Vermin, which is now starring Link. But this clock is really cool, actually. It's probably one of the coolest features. I have it sitting on my desk when I work, and it's just fun to kind of like glance over it, look back, get back to work for a bit, and then you'll glance over again and be like different screen, different characters, different fighting. It's one of the coolest things that they did about this console is design that clock. And the funny thing is you don't realize this, but the clock itself as actually like a game that you can play. So like if you pick up the console and you don't even exit the clock, you can actually like play with it. So clearly Nintendo has a track record of bringing back nostalgia and classic stuff with the NES Classic Edition, the SNES Classic Edition, the 2 Game & Watches, one for Zelda, one for Mario. And they're not like uber expensive. So Nintendo has figured out the right price point. They figured out how to sell nostalgia in a convenient but also financially incentivizing way for them. And with the Analog Pocket out, which has done extremely well, this can play Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance right out of the box. And then it has adapters for the Game Gear, Neo Geo Pocket Color, Atari Lynx, and more. With 2 FPGAs. No emulation. It's hardware-based translation of games. So like the FPGA can literally be programmed to play whatever game system you want. That's just kind of the deal with it. And it's got 4 times the resolution of the original. 10 times the original resolution of the original Game Boy. So this is a really cool system, and it's dockable. You can play it on your TV, and it does a lot of things that Nintendo would probably never design something to do. But a lot of us still have these old Game Boys. This is my Game Boy Advance SP, got a classic Metroid in there because, love the Metroid series. And I think it's high time that Nintendo starts looking back. They did these Game & Watches really well. I think it's about time Nintendo looks at making a Game Boy Classic. And I don't really know why we haven't seen that yet, but it's not on the Switch yet. So it tells me Nintendo is still thinking about what they want to do with Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, all that good stuff, because clearly they did not bring them to the Switch yet. So I think it's about the right time for Nintendo to say, all right, it's time for the Game Boy Classic or the Game Boy Color Classic. And then a year or two from there, the Game Boy Advance Classic. Because those are 2 systems that have they're widely popular. They have really great handheld gaming. And it'd be super easy for Nintendo to just throw, a chip in a little console. Wouldn't be an expensive chip. They did it with the Game & Watch. And just produce a ton of them. Sell them. Game Boy Classic or Game Boy Advance Classic, whatever you want to call it. It could be just the Game Boy Classic and have all these consoles on it. But I think it would be better to do 2 different systems, one with the squared off 4:3 screen-ish range, and one with the wider screen Game Boy Advance, the wider screen. Because Game Boy and Game Boy Color famously have the more squared off screen, whereas the Game Boy Advance has the widescreen. But I think they would be good to do a Game Boy or Game Boy Color Classic and release a whole bunch of classic games. I don't know, 30 or so. Mario, Donkey Kong, Metroid, all their classic franchises could make a return on something classic like the Game Boy. I think it makes the most sense to bring back the Game Boy, probably the Game Boy Color or the Game Boy Pocket, one of those 2 styles, because those are much smaller. Like the Game & Watch is. I like the Game & Watch, but it only has 3 games on it. I'd be willing to pay a lot more money for a Game Boy Classic that had a bunch of stuff on it. And especially with how successful the Analog Pocket has been, Nintendo, you would be wildly successful to do this. So I don't know what they're waiting for, but just do it. What do you guys think? Comment down below. What games would you want to see on a Game Boy Classic? Game Boy Advance Classic? What form factor would you prefer? And would you buy it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe. And I'll see you all on the next one. Bye, guys.